What's up, everybody? It's the Bipolar Prophet, and welcome back to Maypole Farm and Farming Simulator 22. So, right off the bat, you can see some changes. We've gone from the Massey to a favorite 511, and there's a reason for that. The Massey developed a massive oil leak. I mean, this thing, I was parked, and I was running it, and it just started gushing oil out of the bottom of the engine. I don't know if the block's cracked, if the pan is no good. I don't know. So obviously that couldn't continue. So I called the dealer. They sent somebody down. They had to look at it and said, "Yeah, this thing is knackered." So they took that back. They gave me this to use in the interim time for however long that Massey's going to be down. You know, whether it needs a complete re-engine or a rebuild or whatever. I don't know, but obviously I can't be spilling, 6, 8, 10 quarts of oil all over the ground. And it wasn't going to run very long like that anyway. So there was oil and smoke and noise and all kinds of things. Something catastrophic happened to it anyway. So what are we doing today? We are down here on our oat field, and we're going to pick up some straw. If you watch the time lapse in the beginning of this video, or the montage in the beginning of this video, you saw that we mowed all our fields, we tedded one of them for hay, and we rode them up. So they're all ready to be picked up. I'm going to use a forage wagon and not a baler for one real major reason. One is that this is one piece of equipment. It's a one-step operation. Pick it all up, dump it in the cow shed and in the robotic storage area, and be done with it. Now, I don't want to use that robotic thing forever. I do want to go to making my own mixed rations. But since we have the robotic feeder, we might as well use it. And you can see I only have $17,741 because I had to buy a mower, I had to buy a tedder, I had to lease or rent a windrower. So, not a lot of money to be had. Anyway, let's jump in and get started here. Fire this thing up. So, yeah, this Fendt is not bad. It's old. It's a little older than the Massey that I had, but it's solid. It runs. It doesn't leak or anything. Everything works on it. It's got a front 3-point linkage, which is nice because I may need that at some point. And I don't know how long that Massey's going to be down. I think, in fact, they're loaded up on a trailer right now, and they're taking it somewhere else. I think it's a job that even our local dealer can't do. So anyway, we'll pick up this straw, and I'm going to tell you the story of how I ended up here at Maypole Farm. Those of you who've been with me for a while may remember that I was a farmer in England in the Old Ridge Valley. I did that for quite a while. That's way too fast. I was a dairy farmer predominantly. We did quite a bit of arable. We did sugar beets. We did a lot of different things, a lot of crop diversification and things like that. And I genuinely loved working in the Old Ridge Valley. I love the people that that were around me, my friends that I made in that area. But there was one particular group of people that made living there not as enjoyable as it possibly could have been. And those were the Crawford Browns. They were the big money members of Old Ridge. They had all the money, they had all the power. They didn't like farmers. They didn't like farms. They wanted nothing to do with farming or farmers or anything else. They did everything they could to try to make it so that farming in the Old Ridge Valley, and that was always an agricultural area, was hampered. Now, we fought them for years and years and years and years. And slowly over time, things kind of calmed down with them. They sort of, they got pushed out of power in the council. And even though they still had a lot of money, their power base was sort of diminished over time. What ended up happening is that I had built a big extension to my dairy, and I had created a big meadow or a big grass field behind the new dairy extension. And on the other side of that, there's a road, and then a big open area with a very sort of picturesque cliffside and a very nice river and a waterfall and all that, pretty much right behind my property. Well, the Crawford Browns decided that they needed to buy that area up and sell off plots of it for luxury housing. And that was sort of the last straw for me. When the first house went up, and it started to become, oh, well, you've got this big dirty dairy across from you. And my dairy was not dirty. In fact, I was voted the Old Ridge Valley's best dairy 2 years in a row. So, there was nothing dirty about my dairy. It was very well kept and very well maintained and everything. But it was a dairy farm, and there are cows, and there was manure, and there was a certain odor that came off of it, and everything else. And that's just how it was. I didn't find it unpleasant, but if you're, big money and you come from a city somewhere and you want to live in the countryside, well, the gentle odor of cow manure wafting across into your property is probably not what you want. That was the last straw for me. I said, okay, you know what? It's time for me to unfortunately get out of Old Ridge. I didn't want to fight anymore. I wasn't interested in putting up a fight and all that. So what I did was I sold my operation to my very good friend, Mike, a guy that we all called Reefy. And he bought my entire operation, all the land, all the dairy and everything else. About 95% of the equipment, we auctioned off some of it. Now, if you remember also that I had two hands that worked for me for a very long time in Old Ridge called Perry and Phil. They were twins, and Perry, the older of the two by, 5 minutes or so, ended up falling in love with and marrying a local girl from Old Ridge named Molly. Molly's uncle was Irish and owned a farm called Drummond Farm. When they got married, the uncle, who was looking to retire anyway, decided to give Drummond Farm to Perry and Molly as a wedding present, which was, incredibly generous when you think about it, right? And the only caveat to that is that I became the executor of this farm. I controlled the money, I controlled the bills, I set up all the permitting and all the transition from the uncle's ownership to Perry's. And I helped him up there for about a year, and then they went off, and they're on their own, and they're doing great up there. Drummond Farm is a very successful farm. They've had some rough times, due to the situation in the world and whatnot, but overall they've done a fantastic job. So I had sold Old Ridge. I was no longer needed at Drummond, but I still wanted to do something in farming. I've been farming my entire life. I enjoy it. I wanted to do something, and Perry was actually the one who got me hooked up here at Maypole. I'm only about 50 miles sort of west of where Drummond Farm is. And so when I started to look around at, available farms and available properties and stuff. I gotta open this door, don't I? This place kept coming up. I kept getting notices from land agents and, from other people saying, hey, there's a really great place, about 50 miles west of Drummond, and it's picturesque and it's quaint and it's very nice. So when I first came down here about 4 months ago now, I think, I was actually pretty surprised at what I was seeing. This is a very well-established area, very well-established farm, right? Apparently, the owners before, it's had a couple of owners, obviously, in its life, 3 or 4, I think, actually. Apparently, the last owners spent a lot of money to modernize the operation. This is predominantly a dairy farm, which is what I was looking for, obviously. And they spent a lot of money to modernize this with these new sheds, with the robots, with the overall operation of the dairy farm. They spent a lot of money to get this all modernized so that it could be as efficient as possible. Now, you would think that you spend that kind of money that you would want to stick around and make the farm profitable, right? You've spent the money to make it efficient. Now it's up to you to make it profitable. Well, apparently, from what I understand from a gentleman that I met at the little restaurant that's next to the fuel station here in Maypole, they there's a couple of different stories, but the one that I hear, the one that I tend to believe is that the owners had borrowed some equipment from another farm, on a higher basis. They had said, well, we'll pay X amount of money a day to use this equipment, and I guess they bashed it up pretty good. And then, so the farm owner, the person who owned the equipment, rightfully said, well, you're going to pay for the damage. And the farmers, the people who owned this farm, didn't have the money. And I guess they were into the bank for quite a bit of money, obviously, with all the renovations to the dairy and all of that. We're talking about, probably 7, 8, 9 million euros, somewhere in that vicinity. And they didn't have the money. They just didn't have the money. They never got to the point where they could make any money off this farm. And of course, you know what happens when that happens. The bank's going to get their money, right? So they came with the foreclosure signs and the auction signs. And I guess one night, the previous owners of this farm just disappeared. They got in their car or truck or whatever and disappeared. Never to be seen from again. The bank came, they auctioned off all the equipment, they auctioned off all the animals. They got back what they could get back. They put the for sale sign on it, and then here I come. Now, this was not cheap. This probably was 1.5 times what I spent to get into Old Ridge, 10 years ago. But I think it's worth it. I think it's going to be worth it. It's a beautiful area. It's absolutely beautiful down here. I love it. And I think that in the long run, I think that I can make this every bit as profitable as Old Ridge was when I left, when I sold it. When I sold Old Ridge to Mike, to Reefy, it was a profitable operation again. Milk prices had come back up in the UK. We had done a whole range of things to make the operation more efficient, to make it profitable, you know what I mean? It was a big dairy. I was the biggest dairy in the valley. So with 400 milking cows, So I have some experience in in taking something that wasn't profitable and making it profitable. And that's what I hope to do with this. I'm getting up there in age. I'm not young. I'm nearly 54 years old now. I don't know how many more years of this I have in me, but I know I want to give this a proper go. I want to give this, every opportunity I can give it to have it make money. It is kind of funny to start off again from basically nothing, because when I first showed up here, I owned the land, all the buildings, the licensing and all that. Had to start all over again with the permits, had to start all over again with all the inspections and the surveys and all that stuff. I did get a nice house as part of the deal. So, one tractor and not much equipment and not a lot of money, because one thing I wanted to do was, while I made a good chunk of money selling Old Ridge, and I also made some money in a profit share exchange on Drummer, I wanted to make sure that money sort of stayed separate from what I was doing here. Now, I obviously had to get into some of it to buy this place. This place wasn't cheap, especially with the renovations and with all the new, the robotic feeders and all that sort of stuff. It is not cheap. But luckily, I managed to procure a few grants from not only the local government, but the Republic of Ireland and from the EU to run a sustainable and environmentally friendly, as quote-unquote, operation. So hopefully, that will keep us going. Obviously this is going to be a dairy farm. That's what I want it to be. So that's where my experience is. That's what I enjoy the most about farming. And I figure at my age, I might as well do what I enjoy. I will do some arable, and then there's some, there's sustainability payments, there's stewardship payments. We got a lot of non-farmed land around here. All these hedges are habitats and things like that. So there's some payments there. There's some money coming in from various things. So we should be okay. Obviously, the ultimate goal here is to get this dairy up and running as quickly as possible. So now I think I'm just kind of wandering around here. Did I get all of this straw? I believe I did. Only left straw on the middle of the field. We didn't leave it on the headlands. So let me just make sure I got it all. Yep, I did. Okay. So obviously this field's going to need to be worked. I'd very much like to get a winter crop in here. Barley or wheat probably. Probably barley, to be honest. If we can get that done and get a winter crop in, we can't plant yet. It's a little early. Next month we'll be able to plant. So probably barley, I would imagine. Do some field work and everything else. So got a lot of grass to pick up. Going to put the grass into the silage pit, and the hay is going to go, you know what, this can go right in here actually. The hay is going to go into the storage over here. You know, I had a look at what these robotic feeder setups cost. They're not cheap. They are not cheap. So, you know, the previous owners of this farm, you know, managed to get the money, managed to lay out all this money to build these things, to make their operation more efficient, and then couldn't pay for it. And that's too bad. It really is too bad. This isn't going to be much straw, but it's something. It's something to start with. So. All right, now we can go pick up some grass. There is a lot of grass. Now, I'm not 100% certain how I want to go about putting this into the clamp. I've only got the one tractor, so I'm going to have to compact it myself. So that's going to take a long time. Don't worry, I won't make you sit through that. I really just want to pick up this grass, and then we can probably go on to the next thing. So I do have some silage additive in the forage wagon because I figured bulking the silage up a little bit, considering that the yield, this grass was not in very good shape when I cut it. There's hardly any nutrients, you know, in the grass. So anything I can do to make it a little better would be good. It looks like there's a lot of grass on here, but there really isn't, considering the size of this pasture. This is a pasture. This is the main cow pasture. So, but because we didn't have cows and I needed something to, you know, to feed them when we do get them, I decided to cut this. It just made sense. And I also cut the other side of the sheep pasture as well, because we won't have sheep anytime soon. This was a dairy and sheep operation. Originally, it was a sheep operation. They expanded into the dairy, and then they completely remodeled the dairy to get all of this, you know, really high-tech stuff in to help make the dairy efficient and profitable. And then they disappeared. One cool thing about this fence is that it has these, if I could turn around and see what I'm doing, it has these, if you can see those white boxes on the mirrors, those are, and I learned this from Brewster Agricultural Consultants, those are Iseria Pro Compact nitrogen sensors. What they do is they scan the ground and they detect how much nitrogen is in the ground, and it sends a signal to an app on your phone. This tractor doesn't have any monitors, so I'll have to get some kind of mount for my phone mounted on one of these grass rails on the side here in the cab, and I'll be able to see in real time how much nitrogen is in these fields, which is great. You know, that's a handy thing. And I think if I get the Massey back, that I may end up having these installed on that as well. That'll really come in handy when it's time to, you know, slurry or muck or spread fertilizer or any of that. That'll be great. So, you know, again, modern technology, let's take advantage of it. I'm not sure where this tractor came from. I don't know if they took this in as a trade or whatever, but I'm glad they had it because I needed it. So, all right. Now, here's the thing. Gonna have to back into this pit, which isn't ideal when you're doing this by yourself, but it's gonna be the way it is. So, and I wonder, well, see, I say that, but there isn't. It looks like there's a lot of grass, but there really isn't. I should have more than enough silage additive in this tank to get through it. I'm probably going to just do one more pass anyway and call this a video, because I don't want to bore you guys by making you watch me go around and around and around and around. Really, what this video was really designed for was to get the story of why I'm here and how I got here and all that out. Because I realized I hadn't told you guys that. So, You know what? I guess we're going to need some kind of... The problem I'm going to run into here is, as I stop mid-sentence, as I so often do, we're going to need some kind of rake or some kind of leveler to get this level. Because not being able to drive straight through it, we got to get it pushed up against the back wall. So, well, that's going to be a problem for another day, I think. I think now the real goal is to just get it into the clamp. So yeah, I think I'll do one more load, dump it in there, and then we'll call this an episode. Next episode, probably be doing some field work. I'm not 100% certain. I may fast forward time a little bit. The soil map will be coming from Brewster Agricultural Consultants. Obviously, I only just sent those soil samples out, so they're not done yet. It's going to take a couple of days. I think they told me 48 hours, a 48-hour turnaround from the time you drop them off to the time that they get done with them. So, you know, a couple days, we'll have a soil map, and I'll have an idea of what I'm actually looking at. So, I forget where I left off now, as I've driven all the way around the field. Did I make it all the way around once? I didn't, no. Okay. I knew I'd stop here somewhere. Let me speed this up a little bit. I think this tractor's 115 horsepower, which is, you know, more than enough for this farm right now. You know, it's not a power shift. It's what's called a turbo shift. It's fence sort of version of a power shift, I guess. I know that I still have to use the clutch when I shift. It's not the smoothest thing in the world, but it's not bad. 4 ranges, 6 gears, you know, so 24 gears altogether. Not too bad. You know, she's pulling along quite happily, you know, in high range in 5th gear, so no problem pulling the forage wagon or running the PTO, so I like it. And I like it even better that it's not leaking oil all over the place. What a mess. I mean, I had gone to the house for a minute. I'd come back and there's smoke and there's oil and there's noise, and I was like, oh no. It seems like whenever the same thing happened at Old Ridge. When we had sort of gotten situated at Old Ridge, and I needed a harvester, and I was borrowing harvesters, and I hired them in, and I was hiring contractors to combine my arable crops, and it was just getting too expensive. So I realized that, okay, maybe I can get some sort of harvester that isn't gonna, you know, cost me £500,000. I found a reasonably decent one, an Eastern European one, older one, obviously. I think it was a Dawn, I believe. And, you know, I used it for probably 2 harvests, and then I was putting it up one afternoon, and it burst into flames. It had an electrical problem that I wasn't aware of, and it burst into flames. And, you know, even though it wasn't a new combine that would have cost me, you know, near enough £1 million, it still wasn't cheap. And here's my combine burning into a pile of molten metal, you know, and burnt plastic and burnt rubber in my farmyard. So I didn't want a repeat of that, that's for sure. So yeah, I figure with the montage, and then with the you know, the introduction to what's going to be the story of Maypole, I really wanted to get this out. So the story, so to step out of the story for a minute, I want to make sure that I explain where that story actually came from. And I'm sure most of you guys have read it. My good friend Cavalier Roy, and the creator of this map, actually left that story snippet as a comment on the video, and I liked it, and I said, you know what? I said, let's use that. Let's let that be the origin of Maypole, right? So thank you, Roy, once again. You know, not only do you make awesome maps, and you're a good friend, and you help me when I'm an idiot and I don't know how to do something, and I'm getting mad at the game and everything else. But you also helped create the story of Maypole, so thank you so very much. and you will see Roy's name. You'll hear Roy's name a bunch more times during this series, which I hope lasts a very long time. I have a tendency to create something and then stay there forever. And because I really, really like this map, and as soon as there's story involved in it, it starts to feel like home. It starts to feel like, this is where I'm supposed to be. And off we go, 100 episodes later, right? That's the idea. We'll find out. So anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this. As always, let me know what you think. Any comments, any questions, any recommendations, tips, suggestions, any of that stuff, any feedback at all. I appreciate it all. I read everything. I reply to almost everything. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Hope you're enjoying yourself. If you like what you see, click the subscribe button. It's the best way to keep notified of when I make new videos, which isn't all that frequently, but it's as frequently as I can. And you'll definitely want to subscribe to keep up with the ongoing story of Maypole Farm. And as always, guys, thanks so much for watching. And this is the Bipolar Prophet saying, see you later.